name is Norm Bolsky, your host, and this is the Digital Health Heavyweights Podcast.
Thanks, Norm. It's an honor to be here, and it's been fun to work with you over the years.
Today, we are pleased to have joining us Dr.Maroof Ahmed, COO and co-founder of Pelago, formerly known as Quit Genius. Maroof, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Norm. It's an absolute pleasure being here.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch you and Yusuf's company grow. I met you guys, 5, 6 years ago maybe, and now you just announced a Series C. You want to tell the audience, about that fundraise and kind of what's next for Pelago?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, Norm. You've known us from the early days of Quit Genius, which is now Pelago. But yeah, just very recently we announced the Series C, $58 million, hugely competitive round, which was great. Coming off so it's super exciting times here in Pelago, and we're excited for the journey ahead of us.
Yeah, I love the rebrand. It's going well. My wife was a little dismayed because she had her I Love Quitters shirt that she used to wear in the gym. She was really upset that now that's obsolete. So we'll have to do something about that. But we still wear them proudly in the gyms.
I love it. I love it. And for the listeners out there, Norm and I went for a coffee in Brooklyn a few weeks back, post rebrand, and Norm was still wearing his "I Love Quitters" t-shirt. So yeah, you're a man of your word, Norm. Man of your word.
Yeah, we always get funny looks, so it's fun. So for all those that don't know, Pelago stands as the world's leading virtual clinic for substance use management, spearheading a mission to transform substance use support from prevention to treatment. So Pelago's innovative solutions offer education, management skills, and avenues for positive change to individuals tackling substance use challenges like nicotine, alcohol, and opioid addictions, reaching over 750,000 members to date. Maroof is equipped with an MD from the Imperial College of London, along with a bachelor's from their business school as well, and leads Pelago with a blend of medical expertise, business acumen, driving forward the future of digital health with impactful strides. So, Maroof, we're really pleased to have you and can't wait to dive in. You have a medical background. You're now co-founder of a company in med tech. Maroof, what inspired you to start Pelago with your co-founders?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Norman, and something if I rewind all the way back to the start. My parents are from the Indian subcontinent and they moved over to the UK to study university here. So we grew up naturally with a pretty small family around us. It was my parents, my siblings, and an uncle who I was incredibly close with. And unfortunately, in my final year of medical school, I lost my uncle to addiction. He was a heavy smoker, the type of smoker that would sort of light up a cigarette before the other one had finished. And losing him was like really tough, especially being at the age that I was and being so close to him. But also gave that fire within me, and gave me that desire to do something about this, and that's really why we decided to build Quit Genius at the time, and now Pelago. And 7 years on, just so proud of the impact that we've made on folks like my uncle, folks' lives that we've helped transform. And honestly, that's what fuels my fire every single day, seeing those stories, seeing how rewarding they are, and seeing that the impact that we're making.
It's been really awesome to see. I know you've helped hundreds of thousands up until this point. When it's all said and done, you'll be, helping millions. And I've gotten the pleasure and the opportunity to work with you on a professional level, and it's shocking in all the people we've recruited over the years how many people have been touched by addiction and how much that is like truly the passion that comes through from a lot of the people we've worked with together is a lot of them have had that in their family or in their friend group or even themselves or someone really close to them, and it just really you can tell like how passionate and mission driven people at the company are, and it's just been incredible, and I know it's a hallmark of your success. So walk us through the early first year. Everyone sees the success, they see the huge funding, they see all these, huge employers and health plans, using the technology. But in the early years, what was it like?
So going back to where we first started, we started pretty much straight after graduating from medical school. Like I shared, this was a topic that I was incredibly passionate about. And a few months after starting, we got into Y Combinator. So we flew out from London to the Bay Area in the West Coast. And have you ever
Mhm.
seen the program Silicon Valley? No.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So that
You
was
were Pied
probably
Piper, right?
yeah, exactly. That was a pretty accurate description of our first year or so at Pelago because um, we were living in a house in SF. We had our office on the bottom floor, so that's where we were working, and it was we were living the dream. We loved it. We learned a ton. We had great people around us, and YC gave us some great mentors. And also, like some of the principles that we learned from there are still principles that exist today at Pelago. We used to speak to members very regularly. We used to have members that came to our house to test the product on a weekly basis, and the
Hmm.
goal was to build a product that people love, right? And continuously iterating based off some of that member feedback. And like I said, that's still within our product philosophy today, and that's why we're driving some of the best in class outcomes, and that's why members continue to love our product.
What were some of the other things you learned from Y Combinator, and what are some of those guiding principles that you and the leadership team still adhere to today?
Yeah, so we learnt a ton from YC. We came as doctors, and we left learning a ton on how to build a startup, how to scale up a startup, not just from a product perspective, building a product people love, but also from a commercial perspective, right? How do we build something that has value, and how do we create value as well, right? So it's a product that people need, a product that people value as well. So there was a ton that we learned there. We made a ton of friends, of folks that are now in very successful startups and scale ups, and we still stay in touch with them today. So incredibly valuable experience. Someone that's been through that, and then also not just that, like continue to give back to the YC community as well. They've been so supportive with us with every single round of funding that we've raised as well. So it's something that we continuously try and support as well where we can.
I love that. In the early year, like first year, you usually don't see immediate success. You have a lot of challenges and a lot of hiccups. What were some of the first successes that you remember where you and your co-founders said, all right, we might be onto something here?
Yeah. We wanted the product live and we wanted feedback, right? So we actually had a product live for consumers to download on the App Store, for consumers to pay for on the App Store. I think around about 6 months in, Apple decided to do a worldwide feature on our app. And I remember coming down to our office downstairs, being like, what has happened? Why are our servers like off the charts? And then obviously a ton of pings from folks that were in the UK at the time because they were 8 hours ahead. So the phone going crazy, our servers going crazy, and we had to actually call up AWS at the time to scale up our back end system to be able to handle some of those folks. But that's like one of the first times that we realized, wow, people actually really need this. The reviews are incredibly positive. We're also doing clinical trials at the time, and we can see the effectiveness of this as well.
Mhm.
So that was a pretty cool pinch me moment at the time, and yeah, still remember that to the day. And again, back to the depiction of the Silicon Valley episode, it was exactly like that. It's probably a Silicon Valley episode of something similar.
Yeah, no, and actually there's a scene in Super Pumped about the Uber growth and then eventual, challenges they had. But, it was explaining how like Apple like had this very, very rigorous vetting process, and unless you adhere to their rules, you get like kicked off the app store. And yeah, like in Super Pumped with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, they like had a little riff with the Apple group, and it was pretty funny how they navigated it. So yeah,
I
there's a
love
lot
it.
of
I love it.
cool movies and shows, that kind of show a lot of emerging companies that now we hear of and are brand names, and some of the early challenges they have. walking through, like, what are some of the early challenges that you had that you've got
Yeah.
past them, but at the time seemed like very, very, stressful moments?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge right off the bat was trying to convince my parents that I wanted to pursue Pelago, quit Genius, and
Hmm.
not pursue a medical degree, right? So being from a family full of doctors, um, being from an Indian background, like the most prestigious job profession that you can have is to become a doctor. And 6 years of medical school fees that they had to pay for as well. And then I'm telling them I'm going to the West Coast, zero salary. I need to borrow some cash. So they weren't happy at all, and that was challenging. That was really challenging from a personal perspective. And a couple years later, I remember got married to my beautiful wife, and that was tough as well. We're a few years on, still. Not a huge salary, right? And the financial struggle was real, right? Like paying for a
Hmm.
big Indian wedding with not much cash in the bank was challenging, but it's all paid off now. But I still distinctly remember those personal challenges early on. They were the hardest, right? Because with business challenges, we overcame them, right? There's a ton of resilience that we had as founders and as a company that got us through all of that. But when it was personal, it hit a little bit different.
Yeah, no, that is just very interesting that, obviously when you make a decision, it's not just the business side, it's like all of the personal and family relationships. And everyone's got an opinion, especially when, you know, the early days, it's not a sure thing. I guess at what point did your parents kind of sit you down and say, all right, you made the right call? Has that happened
It's
yet?
still not yet. No,
All right, all
management.
right.
No, no. We have a great relationship. I have a great relationship with my parents, and I think it was a few years later when they saw the impact and seeing honestly some of the videos that we share on a day-to-day basis. Right, every single all hands meeting at Pelago, we share videos of folks' lives that are transformed because of Pelago, and sharing them with my parents. They were like, wow, this is crazy, right? You're still making such a huge impact on the lives of people like you would as a medical doctor, but you're just
Yeah.
doing this at a far larger scale. So I think that really helped them overcome it. And they've been, especially recently over the last few years, the biggest cheerleaders, which and I'm honestly so grateful for them for even allowing that opportunity in the first place, because they could have
Yeah.
easily said no.
Yep, yep. Well, all these family doctors, in your family, I'm sure if you combined all the patients they've seen, it wouldn't reach 750,000. So you just got to keep extending that lead you got for, bragging rights in the family.
Yeah.
So, in terms of your commercial go-to-market, you started as a consumer app, and that's where you got most of your first traction and some of your clinical results. When did you and your leadership team decide, okay, let's move into B2B, let's start selling it as an employee benefit? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, it actually happened, I would say, by chance at the time, right? There were a number of folks that were using our product. We obviously had the App Store feature, and we had an inbound request from a large 50,000 life group in the Northeast, who. Are still a client to this day, still a very happy client to this day, and said, "Hey, we're looking for a tobacco cessation solution. The one that we have right now is not that great, and your product looks
Hmm.
amazing." And I still remember the time Yusuf and I went over, landed at the airport, had a 4 hour drive, and the benefits leader, who I'm by the way very good friends with now, and she's great, was like, "You two are not what I was expecting." We showed them our product, and they loved it. And like I said, we've expanded with them. They're now obviously have our full suite of products across the whole population. We've saved them millions of dollars, but also on top of that, have helped transform thousands of their employees' lives. So it happened by chance at the time, but then we saw that there was a huge need and a huge market for it, and that's when we decided to double down on it.
I remember in the early years when, we were trying to get some, really, really talented candidates to believe in what, Quit Genius was at the time. And, something I used to say constantly to these candidates was, tobacco is just the Trojan horse into these accounts. Like the real excitement, the real, future of this company is in, substance use disorder and, alcohol and opioid. And, that got people's ears perked up for sure. So, I do think it can be a controversial subject. Did you find in the early years employers were hesitant to approach the issue of substance use disorder?
Yeah, I think early days, absolutely, right? There was a huge stigma associated with it. We had to do a ton of education in the market on substance use management, and the fact that it was a problem, because often the answers that we would get is that's such a big issue, but we don't have that issue over here. And then when you dig into their medical claims, and then you realize that there is a huge issue and there is a huge medical bill associated with inpatient services. And that's where the education comes in. That's where we come in and say, actually, 90% of the people with substance use issues within your population are not getting the access to the treatment that they need. So they're going untreated. And what that results in is that they wait too long, they end up in an inpatient service, in some cases out of network. And that's why you're seeing the $10 million bill on your medical claims, right? So the proof is in the pudding there. We can really help support. EAPs, even some of these newer digital EAPs, are not accessing the level of people that you need. They're accessing, 3 to 5% of the people. With a dedicated and specialized substance use management solution like Pelago, we can go out there and help support the majority of the folks that they need and meet them where they are on their journey, right? Whether they
Yep.
are in need of, milder support with a coach or a counselor, or they need, they're on more of the severe end of the spectrum and they need medication and some of the controlled substances that can help overcome some of the substance use issues that they may have. We can meet them there. And that's really what's driven a lot of the growth over the last couple of years. Folks have now seen this. There's a huge public perception shift that's happening around this. Many people, even in the White House, are speaking about how substance use is at its worst it's ever been in the US right now. We
Yeah.
hear celebrities speaking about their recovery journeys right now. That didn't used to happen 7, 8, 9 years ago, right, Norm? So
No.
there's been a huge shift in the market there, and like I said, in the early days it was much tougher, but after creating that category and really leading the charge with the education in the market, we've seen some of the biggest growth that we've seen over the last couple of years, because now employers know they need a solution, and the conversations are far easier, especially as we have the evidence base and the clinical outcomes and the claims validated ROI that we can share here at Pelago.
Yeah, and we were working together pre-COVID, but I do think one of the few industries that did better than digital health and remote care models, during the pandemic was liquor stores and, local black market narcotics dealers. I think their business was never, greater. And I think that was really a inflection point in this space. I think, people alone, anxious, left to their own devices, were using whatever their drug of choice was more in isolation during COVID. And I think it really became, top priority for a lot of healthcare payers to really look at this issue head on and not just sweep it under the rug anymore. So, how do you think COVID and the pandemic and people kind of being at home and all that uncertainty factored into some of that shift in mindset?
Yeah, you're completely right, Norm. And the proof is in the numbers that you just highlighted there, right? It's a slippery slope. I have many people that I know personally, and I'm sure you have many people that you know personally, that drank a little bit of alcohol. And during the pandemic, there was less things to do. There, was less access to many of the hobbies and other things that they used to do. And there's an increased access to alcohol. It started
And the
to,
companies out there, they're like, what can we do to build a great remote culture? Oh, let's throw a happy hour. Remote happy hour.
exactly.
Like that was like the quick band-aid on like how do we like engage our employees when they're at home? Oh, throw a happy hour like that people are on Zoom. Even if someone was trying to avoid it, like their own company was probably encouraging them to like pour a glass of wine and, converse with their colleagues.
Exactly that. And then it was a slippery slope from there. One glass of wine a week becomes one glass of wine a night, becomes 2 to 3, right? And then are you drinking a healthy amount of alcohol, or is that an unhealthy amount of alcohol? When you're drinking 2 to 3 glasses of wine a night, that's an unhealthy amount of alcohol. You may not
Mhm.
associate with the word addiction, but you actually do need some support. And that's where Pelago can come in
Mhm.
and help support. And that's why we've been very judgment free, stigma free with the messaging that we use. A lot of it led to some of the rebrand that we ultimately ended up doing, but also the category
Mhm.
creation of substance use management. We don't speak about addiction on a day to day basis. Some of the folks that come in to our program associate with that word, and some of them don't. And that's completely
Mhm.
fine. But all of them are unanimous in that they need our support, and we can help support them in helping them live a healthier life, a better life, and have a better relationship with the substance that they're using.
Walk me through the, idea of rebranding, Quit Genius into Pelago. Can you walk us through, that decision a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So as we shared when we first started, we're a tobacco only solution, and the name Quit Genius made sense, right? You're quitting smoking. It was within the name, it was obvious, but obviously as we expanded to alcohol and opioids and alcohol in particular, the word quit wasn't always the goal, or the goal to quit wasn't always the goal for
Hmm.
members. Some wanted to go from an unhealthy amount of alcohol to drinking a healthy amount of alcohol, or a
Hmm.
far or clinical significant reduction in the alcohol that they're using. So the word the brand Quit Genius didn't necessarily apply anymore. So that's where the name Pelago came from. Paige Swanepoel, who I know you know very well, was the mastermind behind this. I can't take
Yeah.
any credit for it, but the whole idea
Great
behind it.
job, Paige. You're making us all proud.
100%. Paige actually strictly took Yusuf and I off anything rebrand related because we had a part to play in Quit Genius. So
Yeah.
she did a far better job than we ever could. Clearly by the two contrasting brands, but Pelago, the idea behind it comes from the Swedish word archipelago, which is a group or a cluster of islands. And the whole concept behind it is you're never alone in your recovery journey.
Hmm.
You always have a sea of support around you. And going back to what I was talking about before, the stigma free, the judgment free messaging that we want to promote, it really resonates with the brand Pelago. And yeah, side note, the swag and the colors that have come out of it are far better. So I know we talked about the I Love Quitters t-shirts. We'll get you some Pelago swag for
I
sure.
can't wait.
Either one
I'll
of these
wear it
quarter zips or
proudly. I'll wear it very proudly. Um, Pelago has closed huge accounts. AT&T, Philips, Dollar Tree, GE Appliances, many more. What is it like onboarding a huge employee population like that? You're leading operations that reports up through you. Like, walk us through how challenging an implementation and rollout can be.
yeah. First few times, no, honestly, very daunting. I remember 4 or 5 years ago when we were launching some of the first big clients, 200, 300,000 live groups. And it is pretty daunting, right? But once you've done something once, you improve, you continuously learn, and we continuously get better. And we set up the processes, right? We set up the
Mhm.
processes and the infrastructure for scale there. So now, far less so, right? This is happening on a pretty regular occurrence now, and there are many of
Yeah.
the Fortune 50 that are now using Pelago. And like I said, there's now the processes, the people, the infrastructure in place to make that as seamless and smooth as possible. And for us, the bigger the client, the bigger the reward, right? We've talked
Mhm.
about how rewarding this is for every single employee. Every story that we hear is different, Norm. Every single video is unique. And that's
Mhm.
what fuels my fire every single day. That's literally the reason why I do what I do every day. And that's why we continuously share these stories, because many folks, as we've talked about, as we've alluded to, have such a passion for the mission that we have on a day-to-day basis. So really not that daunting anymore, and bigger the client, bigger the impact.
Yeah. Nothing too big for you guys. You can handle it, which is awesome. Um, what's the greatest lesson or lessons learned as you've scaled this company?
Great question, Norm.
Experience is the best teacher in a lot of times. So,
100%. I would have to say, especially as we're scaling, and actually given the fact that I'm speaking with you, the importance of hiring, the importance of having really strong talent around you, and executives and leaders and managers, in every single employee at Pelago, having a really high talent density across the board, a really high bar across the board, because the reason we've been so successful as a company is because of the people that we have around us, right? And the reason that we'll continue to be successful and continue to scale is if we continue to maintain that and continue to hire great people. So really hiring has been the key. We follow a lot of the principles that Amazon have with the bar raiser process there. That's been integral, and you know how thorough we are with our hiring processes.
Yeah,
And we've done
you
a
learn
great
that from our buddies at Hinge. I think
yeah.
Gabriel gave a couple tips on how to interview in the early years.
Exactly. 100%. I learned a lot from Dan and Gabriel, and obviously now Gabriel's on our board, right? So yeah, that was one of the early lessons that we learned, and has paid forward in a big way.
Well, you mentioned, what gets you out of bed in the morning and, why you're just incredibly passionate because the more success you have, the more people you can help. I see that as well in my business. Obviously, when, I work with companies and they do well, that's incredibly rewarding. When, you work with people and, you find a great fit and then you see them succeed and get promoted. Like I just saw Ed Daly got promoted to CCO, super
Shout out, Ed.
exciting. I saw Kent Raymond just got, promoted. So that's great to see. And when I hear like, oh, Dana closed AT&T, it's like, wow, like that person just gave over 100,000 people access to this solution that's going to help thousands and thousands of people. So I get it, like a degree of separation away, but like that's what I find super rewarding is to see founders be really successful, who I've worked with, and people getting promoted and expanding their career, and then obviously some of the commercial people giving people access to these solutions is just incredibly rewarding to see. um, Walk
100%.
us through the typical member experience.
Yeah, so I think the member experience at Pelago, like I said, always starts with judgment-free, stigma-free messaging. We reach out from communications that we send out, and some of those communications are very tailored to folks that need it, right? Often, if we're sending wider group communications, it's, hey, folks at AT&T, are you drinking a healthy amount of alcohol, right? If you are, why not, just jump on a call with one of our health coaches to find out.
Hmm.
And when they do jump on one of the calls with one of the health coaches, they can find out, are they drinking a healthy amount of alcohol? And, I might call up and say, I'm drinking X amount a week. And they say, that's fine. Maroof, if you see that level increasing in any way, shape or form, just call us back. You know where to find us.
Hmm.
Um, but a friend might call up and say, I'm drinking 3 glasses of wine a night and I need the support now. And that's where our care coordinator will get them access to the
Hmm.
support that they need. So it's very, very tailored to where they are and where they fall on the spectrum, and everything's delivered through our mobile app. So they can speak to our counselors, they can speak to their MD or NP if needs be, so their care team within the app via messaging, via video calls. They can order medication if they need it in the app, and they've got a full suite of digital tools within the app as well. So really, it's everything that they would need to help them manage their substance use better at the click of a button within their pocket as well. So really reinventing the delivery of care for substance use management. And that's really one of the reasons that we've scaled in a big way.
I love it. I'm going to share some statistics. Pelago members see a 62% reduction in alcohol use. 52% of members quit smoking after 4 weeks in the program. And 67% of members are 100% free from opioids after a full 90-day period. Those are incredible stats. Like, I don't know any group, that can kind of touch those. So I guess, what is Pelago's unique approach to help people take control of their addictions and find the road to recovery?
Yeah. I think for us, it starts with our philosophy from the beginning. Our focus, Norm, is substance use management. That is what we do, and that's what we've
Mhm.
been focused on for the last 7 years. Because we have a focus on this, we can deliver it better than anyone else out there. We're obsessed over it. We're continuously looking at ways that we can improve our member experience. We're continuously looking at ways that we can improve our clinical outcomes. And that's why you see those best in class clinical outcomes. And I think, unfortunately, like in the digital health space right now, or in the past, you have many folks that try to do many, many things, and they're almost like jack of all
Mm-hmm.
trades and master of none. And that is one way of going about things. And we've gone a completely different way. We said our focus
Mm-hmm.
is substance use management. We want to ensure that we're delivering the best in class clinical outcomes. We want to ensure they're independently verified by publishing the peer reviewed papers. And we want to hire the best in class product folks and clinical folks to ensure that that happens, right? And then we look at our experience. We look at ways that we can improve it. We listen to member feedback, back to the Y Combinator days, on listening to the feedback, building a product people love, building improvements within our product, and always continue to stay at the forefront of substance use management innovation, right? So because we're
Mm-hmm.
focused on it, we're always the ones innovating the most within this space as well, right? We're going to talk about it later, but we just launched a contingency management program. That's huge. The
Mm-hmm.
first digital nationwide provider to do digital contingency management, which has a ton of evidence base behind it.
And
The
what does
amount,
that mean to the uninformed? What does
yeah.
contingency management mean?
Yeah, so two long words, but contingency management has a ton of evidence base associated with substance use management, and the best way to, I guess, describe it is small financial rewards for continued engagement within the app, right? So
Mm-hmm.
especially within the substance use management field, there's been a ton of research to show that that doesn't just lead to better clinical outcomes, it leads to better engagement and longer term engagement. Because unfortunately, one of the big challenges with substance use management is that folks relapse, right? It should be treated like a chronic condition, like
Mm-hmm.
diabetes is, like MSK is, right? People need support for 2 to 3 years in many cases for substance use management. And things like contingency management, things like amazing member experience can help support them along the way. So yeah, one of the first folks to do that, especially from a digital experience. So we've, you can get Pella tokens within the app, which you can
Yeah,
convert to, Amazon gift cards, and it's super exciting stuff. The member feedback has been incredibly positive, and I'm very excited for the launch of it.
I love that. I love that. And it's, I my favorite musician of all time, Jerry Garcia, he had like substance use disorders his whole, career really. And I've been, reading every book on his life that I can find. I'm actually in the very early stages of doing a little passion project and writing like a play about his life. But what I find really interesting about the book, and like there were multiple times he got clean and like he kept relapsing, and it wasn't because he wanted drugs necessarily. It was like all of the pressures of life that he wasn't really combating, ultimately led him to, seek comfort. And ultimately, some of it was physical pain he was dealing with. And, how that, kind of impacted his urge, to maybe try, to use again. And it's just really incredible how like maintaining that treatment and really realizing like there's a lifelong condition and treating it like that is super important. So I'm really glad to hear that that's what you're doing, is staying close to the
100%.
people when they need it most. You've been ultra successful, you and your co-founders. I'm sure there are a lot of people who are part of the Y Combinator group that did very well. I'm sure there are other companies that you probably joined with that don't even exist at the current moment. So my question is, like, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs before they start a business? Like, what are some learnings you've had that you would say, hey, these are things to do to stay, give yourself the best chances of success. What are some things to avoid?
Yeah. So quick caveat: we've got a long way to go, Norm.
I
Our
know.
journey is just getting started. But I think for anyone, and folks sometimes come and ask for advice around, I want to start this company. The unanimous advice I always give is make sure you're passionate enough about this project to want to pursue this for 15 years plus. Success never comes overnight. If you look at any of these companies that have made huge impact in the world, it doesn't come in 1 or 2 or 3 years. It comes in 10
Hmm.
to 15 years, right? So you need to be so passionate about something. You need to be obsessed about something, right? Like Norm, I sleep with a notepad next to me, right? And I wear this Whoop on a day-to-day basis the reason being, I regularly wake up at 2 to 3 a.m. with an idea, being like, okay, fine, this is
Hmm.
something that we need to do at Pelago, etc., etc. Let me write down on a notepad and go back to sleep. So you need to be obsessed about something and very, very passionate about something and want to dedicate not just a career, but your life to it for 10 to 15 years. And if you're not that passionate about it, then don't do it, because there's going to be
Hmm.
so much pain, so much struggle that you're going to have over the next 10 to 15 years that it's just not going to be worth it. And you're just going to fail at the first hurdle. So yeah, just make sure you have that passion and that commitment to doing something.
I'm laughing because you have no idea how many emails I send to myself past 10:30 p.m. because I think of something, I have an idea, and I'm like, oh, I can't forget
Yeah.
that. So I'll like pick up my phone, I'll go into my email, I'll send it to myself, and I'll be like, oh, like, well, talk to this person, or let's try to change this, structurally within our process or whatever it is. So I
You need
definitely
to you need to
understand
get on
that.
a notepad. You need to get on a
Uh,
notepad, Norm, because the challenge with the phone and the email is that you'll see another 3 or 4 notifications, and then you'll be on your phone. Obviously, the blue light, and then
yeah.
you'll stay up for 30 minutes versus the 2 minute writing something down.
All right, I'm gonna take your advice. I'm sure my wife will be very happy with that. So, what characteristics do you look for when you're in the early years scaling a company? Like, I think the skill set it takes to be successful at a Series C or Series D company is completely different than like seed and A. In
Yeah.
the early years, like, what do you think the crucial traits were that made someone either successful or not successful? At Quit Genius in the early years.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that the traits and characteristics change, right? The company evolves and changes. It goes from being a 5 person company to a 300 person company, right? So
Hmm.
of course things evolve, things change on that side. I think in terms of the key characteristics, um, especially early on, ownership mentality.
Hmm.
You need folks early on, and even now, we ensure everyone has a stake in Pelago, so they're an owner in Pelago. So we
Hmm.
would love them to also act like owners here at Pelago and treat this like their own company. Not just um, they see a challenge, first principles thinking on how we can address some of those things, right? Because that's really, really, really important. Because really, your job, it changes day to day, especially when you're early on in a start, when you're the first 15, 20 people. So that ownership mentality is key. A few other traits like executing with urgency, so important. Often, if you're in a market where you're doing something that people need and people want, other folks will enter the market as well. So
Hmm.
making sure you are executing with urgency, you're moving at the right pace, because you're going to be there to win the market, right? Because the folks that win the market are the ones that make the most impact. So a couple of key traits there, many more, but I think they're two that come to mind.
Okay. There's a lot to be proud of what you and your team has accomplished. Helping hundreds of thousands of patients. You're knocking on the door at helping over 1 million. So I'm sure we'll celebrate that statistic in the not too distant future. But outside of just patient impact, which is obviously the number one, what else are you super proud of what Pelago has become, and what it is now, from the early years?
That's a great question. Actually, like post Series C, we're reflecting on that as co-founders, because, of course, number one is the hundreds of thousands of people that we made and transformed their lives. But closely followed, second, is the culture that we built here at Pelago. People love working here at Pelago. People
Mm-hmm.
love the mission. People are so tied to this mission here at Pelago. I've shared my incredibly personal story as to why I love what I do every day. Many others have that same personal story. We talked about you being an impact on that as well, and helping support that with some of the talent that you bring. But every single person here at Pelago is having that impact, whether they're an engineer, whether they're a salesperson allowing increased access, whether they're in the marketing team and increasing the voice and the access that we have across that population. They're all enabling us as a company to transform that person's life, help them overcome that issue that they have with substance use or that addiction in certain cases, and then transform that person's lives. Because without that person, without that employee, without the full team, that wouldn't be possible. So the culture that we created here, the fact that people love working here, and again, it's something I obsess over. I always tell people that I have weekly objectives that recur on my Sansama, and one of them is, how can we make this a better place to work? Right? Sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
something small, but sometimes be something larger. But it's always, how can we improve that? How can we scale our culture? Because that's one of our secret sources for success.
I love it. So, when I got to know you, you and your co-founders were selling a smoking cessation product. Since you've added alcohol, you've added opioid, you've added contingency management, you've done all these new things. What's next? What's like the next thing that you and your team have your eye on, that you can share that isn't confidential?
I wish, Norm, I could share all of this, but Paige and the marketing team will not be happy with me. But
Hey,
obviously,
we don't
we
want to
had
give the competition any secrets.
exactly. No, we had a great year, obviously, with the adolescents, the contingency management, and like you said, we've continued to stay at the forefront of that. Many other substances coming out soon, which will be great. I think there is. It's just the same philosophy, Norm. How can we stay ahead of the folks that are going to be following suit afterwards, right? Because if you are the first mover, there will be folks that are following suit. How can we continue to improve those outcomes? How can we continue to drive great ROI for our clients and great cost savings for our clients? And how can we continue to ensure that we're impacting members' lives in the big way? But more to come on that, Norm. Please do follow the Pelago LinkedIn page, and you'll see
I'm
much more
following
to
you
come.
guys all the time. I'm a big fan. If you guys ever get into the most addictive substance in the world, sugar, I've got a great client for you. My 2-year-old daughter, Mila, she can't get enough, and we're trying to get her to, eat a little more vegetables and fruits. She used to, but now all she wants is candy. So we're
Yeah.
working on it.
Yeah, you and I are like, I've got a 2.5-year-old Amaya, and yeah, lollies are her favorite. Like, she's just
Yeah.
constantly got a lollipop in her mouth. So I'd buy that product as well, no.
Maroof, you've seen a lot of change over the digital health landscape over the last 7, 8 years. You've been in business. What are some bold predictions you have for the space?
Yeah, I think this is a great question, and I honestly think this is already starting to happen to a certain degree. So less of a prediction, but more something that I think will get far, far more scrutiny over the next few years and beyond is the ROI that digital health vendors are claiming. I think every single vendor and digital health vendor out there is claiming a positive ROI. But
Hmm.
when you look at how they calculate the ROI, a large portion of the costs are omitted, or a large portion of the savings are estimated. So, in certain cases, inflated because they're estimated savings based on absenteeism and productivity. So, the term ROI in digital health doesn't mean too much anymore. So, I think employers, health plans, consultants are getting far more sophisticated within this field, which is really, really good. And at Pelago, for our clients, we try to ensure we're not just delivering a really positive ROI, but also delivering a net decrease in medical spend. And what I mean by that is that the total medical savings that they're driving directly from Pelago, that they see within their medical claims, are 3 times higher than the total cost of the Pelago program, and the total cost that an employer is paying for our solution. So that's how we judge economic impact here at Pelago, and we're starting to see that come up more and more. Right, we saw the Peterson study that came out recently, which was a bombshell study, and I thought it was groundbreaking. I thought it was great because unfortunately, the harsh reality is that many vendors and digital health vendors within the space are leading to a net increase in spending. So their solution costs far more than some of their medical costs that they're driving. So that's one of the big things that I think we'll see. And by proxy of that, I think one of the things that we'll see adjust over time is the per employee per PPM model, right? Per employee per month model, right? That's been a model that has been a mainstay of the digital health field for the last
Hmm.
15, 20 years. But there's not many other industries in the world, Norm, that I can think of that you have to pay for people that aren't using a product, right? And
Hmm.
employers are really seeing this now because as it leads to increased net spend, as it leads to some of the challenges that I talked about with true ROI, I think we're not going to see the PEPM model anymore. Right. I think that's something that rightly so will sort of move away from, and employers will move away from. And I think all of this ultimately is better value for some of the clients out there, the employers, the health plan, and it also helps align incentives with a lot of the digital health vendors and employers.
I wish there was as strong of a correlation between buying Orange Theory classes and going to them versus like employers buying something and the employees using it. We got to be able to connect that a little closer. I ask everyone who's been on this podcast. I think it's really important that us in the industry, we practice what we preach. You know, how do you personally, in a very stressful job, exercise, multiple times a week? How do you reduce stress? How do you participate in wellness?
Yeah, that's a great question, Norman. Something that have to prioritize, ensure we continue to prioritize. 'Cause you can get lost in the work. I talked about how I wake up regularly in the middle of the night thinking about Pelago, right? So really being purposeful about that has been something that I think I've got better at over the last couple of years. Still needs improving, transparently, but I'm a big Orange Theory fan. I love Orange Theory, and actually just that concept of paying for 2 or 3 classes a week just gets you going there, right? So that sunk cost
Mhm.
fallacy mentality is important. So if anyone's a member at Orange Theory Park, so you've probably seen me there. And then yeah, stress. I think there are times you need recharging. I meditate, I pray, I try and like focus for 10, 15, 20 minutes away from work. And obviously that number needs to increase over time, but for me that's a start, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, that's been really helpful for me, managing stress. Honestly, becoming a father has been really helpful,
Yeah,
because
puts things into
just
perspective.
yeah, it puts things into perspective. Seeing your kid smile on the weekend, right? When things have been happening at work, it'll always put a smile on your face, no matter how stressed or worried you are.
I do ask everyone on the podcast how you eat healthy, how you stay, really sound mind, sound body. So, are there any recipes you and your family make that someone might be, inspired to go try that maybe they weren't thinking of before?
Yeah. Not the healthiest in the world, but it can be classed as healthy, I guess. Chicken and mushroom risotto. I cook a
Okay,
mean
that sounds
risotto,
good. We got
and I
veggies, we
love it.
got whole
Yeah, yeah,
grains, we
yeah.
got some protein. I like it.
Yeah, and some salad and greens on the side, right? So it's
Uh
not just
huh.
the pure risotto. That's been yeah, I love a bit of that. What else? Chicken Caesar salad, can't go wrong with that. I love grilling meat. Steak is unbelievable and good. Get the iron in there as well. So yeah, plenty of stuff out there. We are blessed, by the way, here in New York, where we have a ton of these new like salad bars that are around, right? I'm not going to promote any of them on the podcast, but there's plenty of healthy options out there.
Awesome. You can share names. I don't think we have enough viewers to expect any commercials or any promotions. But again, thank you so much for joining us on the Digital Health Heavyweights podcast, Maroof. Really enjoyed the talk. Really enjoyed getting to know you over the last bunch of years, and hopefully we'll have you on again when we have big news to share about Pelago in the coming years.
Very soon, very soon. Thank you so much, Norm. Appreciate your time as always.
Thank you,
Enjoy your chat.
Maroof. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining. Take care. Thank you for joining. Please like, comment, and subscribe below if you enjoyed it.